Before we install the pistons, we're just going to oil our crankshaft bearings through the oil holes, just like as if the engine was running. This is what the factory repair manual says to do, so not sure how crazy I'm supposed to get, but I'm just going to do a nice little squirt through every oil hole so that they won't be dry when we go to start this puppy up. Gonna go ahead and install our pistons. We are doing the SPI T-Molly series piston kit. Comes with everything you need: a wrist pin, 2 Circlips. Here's your wrist pin and your piston. Go ahead and give our needle bearing a bit of oil. As well as our wrist pin. Want to make sure to have your arrow facing the mag side. I did want to make a quick note just on these pistons and pins if you use the SPI brand. So if you look closely, see if you can see it there. There you go. There's an initial stoppage right where that rim is of the inner sleeve. Let's see if I can get it to hit. Okay, there it is. So when I first pulled the two out and went like that, if you sit right on that rim, it can feel like it's not going to go. Sometimes it even, I can push on that with a ton of force, I bet, and it wouldn't go. But if you wiggle, just the slightest wiggle, then you're through and it slides easy. So just wanted to point that out because I was ready to go, have to heat this up with a torch, yada yada, to try to get it to go through because I thought it was going to be a real tight fit, but just that little beveled lip there, a little bit of wiggling and it goes right in. So just make note of that. Maybe your piston's the same. Thought I'd show you one circlip install so you get the idea. I'm going all mine on 6 o'clock. You basically want your opening pointed straight down or straight up. You don't want to get near that groove there because that could potentially help it work its way out. So 6 o'clock has been working for me, so that's what I'm doing. So you get it 1/2 in the groove, push hard with your other thumb. Usually you can get about that far. Take a little pick. You can sometimes wedge in there, or if it feels like it's just kind of you lost your momentum, then don't be afraid to bring it out and start over. 3rd time's a charm. Probably takes me 2 or 3 on all of them. Tries. I don't know if I've ever nailed a single one. It's not extremely easy, but you can get it. The main thing is the initial press with the thumb to compress it. Because sometimes you can compress it well enough that the whole thing goes in there. And other times it hangs out like that, so just keep working at it. You'll get it. try to get under it a little better this time. Same story all 3 times, eh? There we go. So that's actually too far in. So to bring it out, keep your thumb there so the whole thing doesn't shoot you in the eye. And just all it takes is that. Then we're going to move it a little bit because right now it's about 7 o'clock. Just take your little pick, slide her over it, hair more. There we go. It's about 6 o'clock. That's how you do it. You really got to watch these little buggers. It got away from me, slipped down into this crack here, and by the grace of God I was able to pull it out with this little magnet on a rod contraption. I just happened to have the stuff to make in a couple seconds looking around my trailer shop, but I have a smaller magnet pulling device, but I don't know where it is. My bigger one with a head like that, not sure if it would have fit down in that crack. I don't think it would have. So anyways, even when you got yourself covered, you still have little gaps these things love to find. So just a heads up, I wouldn't attempt any of this unless you're a pro at it without using some covers for all your main crank holes, because this thing gets down in there and gets crunched around and it could be a nightmare. So just word of advice on that. Before we install our piston rings, we need to measure the end gap. So how you do that is, and you're going to need to do it for all 3 cylinders, take your rings that are going to go in this cylinder and compress it into the cylinder. Take your old piston if you have one, or you're going to need to do this before you install your pistons, or you can just press it down with your fingers, but this makes it perfectly even. You're going to press down until the rings are about 10 millimeters down into the cylinder. I have my dial caliper set at 10 millimeters. That's a little bit more, that's probably 12, so that'll do. And then right there is the end gap. So we need to measure that. The way you're going to do that is take your feeler gauges. The appropriate end gap for this setup is 0.2 millimeters to 0.4 millimeters. So we're going to start in the middle. Let's go with 0.3. See if that fits. Basically, you just take your feeler gauge and run it in between the gap there. Okay, that fits. Bit of a grab, but not too bad. So we're going to go up to 0.4 millimeters. That's the max. We just want to make sure that we're not able to slide the 0.4 around, because that would mean our cylinders are too big. But we're not. It's too grabby. It won't even be able to move, so we're good. Our end gap is somewhere around 0.3 millimeters. That's all you do. And then you just slowly pull it out as to not damage anything. And then install it on your piston. Since both rings are factory the exact same and they both are going to work there, we don't need to make them any smaller. The only reason you would make them smaller is if even your 0.2 millimeter feeler gauge would not fit and would not be able to slide up and down freely. Then you would actually need to take a file and file down your ring gap, but we don't need to worry about that. Alright, and then to install your piston ring, this aftermarket SPI kit has a top printed on the piston ring, so that's pretty obvious. That side facing up. We're going to start it in our lowest groove. We're going to come around. Just like so. Alright. You'll notice all the end gap. Show what I'm talking about. See that little pin there and that little pin there? Those are so that your pistons, when they're compressed in the cylinder and the rings are tight, they're not able to rotate past that point, or they're not able to rotate at all, because whether they try to go one direction or the other, the ring is going to hit that little pin. So those are going to be on your carb side of the engine, the intake side. Every piston has them on this side since the arrow is pointing towards the mag. So anyways, alright, so we're gonna slide our cylinders onto our pistons now. Got our ring gaps measured, everything's good, installed all the rings. Want to make sure they're in the right position with the stoppage pins. Let's make sure the gap in the ring is centered on those pins. This is the correct orientation according to the repair manual. You want your mag piston top dead center, this one a little lower, and then this one wherever it happens to be, a little bit pinched in there. You want to install the mag piston first, then the middle, then the PTO. That's the manufacturer recommendation. We're also going to take our complete gasket kit and grab our cylinder gasket. That would be the big fabric one there. Polaris says to put some Loctite 518 on the ends, so there and there. So we're going to do that. Okay, yeah, you do have a shape difference, so based on the shape difference with this gasket, that side is going to be up. So I'll install it just like that. Get a little bit of our Loctite 518 ready. Go ahead and ease this down over, making sure not to rip it. A little bit of a balancing act here. It'd be nice to have 5 hands, but if you only got 2, you can do it with some patience and precision. There we go. Slowly work it down over all the bolts. Again, no need to worry about set time with this because it's not going to harden until there's a absence of oxygen, so go ahead and puts them on. The manual just says apply a small amount of Loctite 515. That's the old version of 518. Gasket eliminator to gasket ends. So, alright, same thing on this end. Get our gasket up a bit. We want to be careful so we don't wreck our gasket with things flying in different. Oh, it did say, the manual also said to use a piston block, which is a block of wood here, to keep this one from flopping around. So let's go ahead and use that right now. Let's go a bit higher on that middle piston. Okay. Just leave it there for now while we mess with the gasket, and then we may have to adjust it once we install the cylinder. You definitely just want a thin coating of this stuff. You don't want it blobbed on there because then it'll make it uneven. So if you have any blobs, I recommend wiping them off. Just a thin, small amount, that's it. Alright. That's pretty good. Make sure your gasket's sitting down nice and happy in the middle. So yeah, just go around your top ring, top of the piston, add a bit of 2-cycle oil. This will help lubricate the process. Might as well add a little bit on your cylinders too. Can't hurt. Oil's our friend. Don't want anything to get all tight and cranky. Go ahead and smooth it around on the inner edges. Instead of using a block, I actually just stuck a wad of rag under there. So we're going to see if that helps us. Because the block was just too big. But we do want something to help hold the weight of the cylinder case, because it's a lot to hold up with one hand while we're trying to finagle this one in there. Got our rings bouncing all over the place. See if we can compress these first before we bring the old cylinder over. It's tough though without having tiny fingers, especially when you got two of them. Alright, see if we can hold that there. While we bring her on over. Something's good's happening. Come on, baby. problem is the crank wants to turn, so now I realize what the block is for. Okay, we got it. Alright, praise the Lord. First one, mag side is going in. Okay. Can only hope them rings are in the right spot. I think they are. Alright, now we gotta look at these ones, make sure they're in the right spot. Alright. I can press these and get these on there. Next. Alright, so lots of finagling. We got these two sitting on over the rings. We're just on this last one. Pinching down. Compressing the rings with our left hand, giving it some wiggles. Moving the cylinder around with the right. Might have to switch. Switch into the right hand, compressing the rings, just whatever feels more comfortable that you can manipulate it better. You also need to make sure you're going straight down on it, otherwise your rings won't compress correctly. Alright. I think we're in. We're in. Pull out. Any rags. Try to blow out any particles as best as you can. So once this thing seals down, and we bolt it down, there's no going back, so make sure your gasket's seated correctly. And then just slowly work it down. You also need to make sure you're on the studs. So eyeball that as you go down. There we go. Top dead center on the mag. Alright, I finger tightened the base nuts onto the studs. The Polaris manual specifies torque base bolts starting in the middle, alternate intake to exhaust side, moving from PTO end to mag end. So we have our homemade Crowsfoot here. And we're going to be torquing the cylinder base studs, these nuts, to 24 foot-pounds. Just remember, I already torqued this one down. You want to alternate side to side, so come back over here actually. Do this side first. It's really hard to get a grip on this thing. Let's move it on the cardboard. Oh, yeah. Come on, baby. Oh. is. That's how you get her done. Do it yourself, baby.